This is the New York Mets Dove Report, and that on the screen is Mets reliever pitching prospect Brett Banks, who pitched the 7th and 8th inning tonight for the High A Brooklyn Cyclones, where he had no hits, 4 strikeouts, dominated with 95 to 97 on his fastball, and multiple strikeouts on his sweeper. He was surprise guy. I had him in the top 30 on my Mets prospect list, and this is why I see a future major league reliever. I'm the New York Mets Dove Report, Ernest Dove. See you next time. What's up, everyone? I am Ernest Dove. This is the New York Mets Dove Report. Let's get into some player interviews, and I got a good one for you right off the bat to start the minor league season. We are now talking with Brooklyn Cyclones high leverage pen arm Brett Banks. Brett, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, man, but not as good as you so far. From off season to spring to now. Let me start with a general question. What is your experience like from the off season training, spring, and then catching a little bit of fire so far at the high level with Brooklyn?
Yeah, so normally I tend to train at my college, UNC Wilmington, in North Carolina. I've done that the past 3 off seasons now in pro ball, so I utilize our field and facility there and all of our equipment and pitching development stuff that we have there. But it's mainly just been there, and then I have a facility in Raleigh, back in my parents' hometown where I train too. But yeah, I mean, I worked with a lot of guys, a lot of new draftees from UNCW, as well as some older guys that are local to that area that train there as well. So kind of picking their brain throughout the off season and training with them.
That's awesome. And you know what? It must have worked out because you got into some major league spring training games. And when I say got into, I mean 4 appearances without allowing a run in any of them. As a minor league pitcher coming from the A-ball levels, jumping into major league spring games, what was that experience overall like for you?
It was a surreal feeling the first time going out there. I think my first outing was in Tampa at the New York Yankees spring training, and just seeing Aaron Judge and Bellinger and all of those guys coming up to bat. It's a little intimidating, but just having the opportunity to get in those games and face, high-level MLB talent, it goes a long ways for your development. And I enjoyed, being able to do that multiple times. I'm glad that the organization trusted me to go out there and do that and fill in for, the innings that were needed. And I think it helped me develop as a pitcher a lot.
And obviously, it looks like it's already kind of rolled over into the start of the very young start of the season at the High A with the Brooklyn Cyclones. What are some of the stuff that you've been working on? Because even still, as also a contributor to sites like MetsNewsAndLinks.blogspot.com and MaxMets.blogspot.com, one of the writers and contributors wanted to ask, what are some of the things the Mets organization, who seems to do a lot now with player development, changes, switches with pitches and pitchers, what have they been working on with you to improve or build on now during this season?
So really, I think the main goal going into the fall league last year and then off-season training, as well as, heading into spring training, was working on a harder slider and continuing to improve my splitter, which I think I utilized a lot during the big league games. But I think the main pitch was the hard slider. I think they still, really want to see me utilize it a lot more because it's a really good pitch. I've always been kind of a high vert fastball guy and sweeper. So adding those 2 pitches kind of this past season later in the year and then heading into spring training, they've really been, hard on me to improve those and use those in games. And so far they've been really well. I think I've got a lot of trust in the splitters so far. I'm still working on utilizing the harder slider more, but it's been nice pairing that with a kind of a shorter, longer sweeper.
All right. And I know from last season to this, which, by the way, also last season, Brooklyn Cyclones champions of the Sally League. That's pretty awesome. And then for you yourself, it looks like you were working in a lot of innings from last season in A-ball, And now here you are for the new season in 2026. It looks like there's a structure and plan where you're getting into more of the late inning games. And you even just recently pitched 2 perfect innings. So now you're even going multiple innings. So what's the kind of is it any kind of adjustment, or what's your planning now for this season? Looks like eating the innings last year and now being more of a back end high leverage reliever to start this time around.
I think they've kind of envisioned that since I've gotten to pro ball, just from my background in college and being kind of a closer at Wilmington. But I think that was kind of the plan going into spring training. Like, hey, be ready to pitch in those, high leverage moments later in the game. I think me and a few others kind of were told when we got here, that's when you'll be throwing. So, yeah, I think a lot of us enjoy that moment. You go in there when it's a 1-run ball game or tied up or we have the lead, and the blood's flowing, the adrenaline rush. It's a very addictive feeling. But it's also, I think I've always viewed it as kind of like pressure is a privilege, and I like going out there when the game's on the line and being in that moment to succeed.
And I know it looks like for the last few years now, even in the Mets organization and pretty much all organizations at this point with relievers, like the 1-inning reliever is almost gone at this point, except for a couple of guys here and there. Here you are again, already pitching 2 innings. Can you see yourself, or do the Mets continue to want to view you with your multiple pitches throwing as a 1+ inning guy, continuing up the levels?
I think the from what we discussed heading into the season was more so about getting innings. I think last year and the year prior, being injured and missing a ton of time. I think now it's just getting innings when I can. Obviously, I think they do want to see me in the moments when the leverage is high, but I think also just being able to go out there and be available, week by week, no matter whether it's 1 or 2 innings. But I definitely think it's just being able to be healthy and available for the entire season.
And again, so far, so good, dominating for all of your first initial outings. One thing I wanted to ask, because I can't help but seeing it everywhere in the Northeast, it looks like the weather has been absolutely brutal. I mean, here we are down in South Florida and St. Lucie. We're lucky to play a game when it's not raining. But I know in the Northeast, it looks like it's 30 to 40-ish degrees, maybe 50 by game time, every game this season that Brooklyn has played specifically as well. What is it like pitching in that type of environment, along with the winds we always talk about anyway, I've heard about for years in Brooklyn?
It's not the greatest feeling, sitting in 30, 40 degrees and waiting, for your name to be called in the bullpen. But, we've all got our hand warmers and jackets and beanies on. And, you just got to mentally prepare yourself for the weather. I mean, we're out there and, we're moving around every, few innings and staying loose. And, whenever they kind of tell you, hey, you're about to go in the game, you got to be ready for the moment. I mean, I think weather, it does stink. It's not ideal at the beginning of the season. Everyone has to deal with it. It's not just us. The opposing team has to deal with it too. So I think just kind of it is an adjustment going from spring training and it being 80 degrees to this. It's a very brutal feeling, but I think a lot of it's just mental and, go out there and once the blood's flowing, I think it's fine.
Yeah, and I guess I was curious too, with your assortment of pitches, working on the harder slider as well, getting the fastball into the upper 90s. Is there anything specific that feels different or more to work on in 40, 50 degrees, whether it's the fastball, a splitter, a slider in these conditions?
I think gripping the ball is a little rough. I mean, your hands are cold. You can feel it in your hands a little. I try and keep them as warm as possible, but other than that, I mean, like I said, I think just doing as much as you can in the bullpen and then prior to the game, just stretching and doing the little things right, I think go a long way in this weather. And then just, bundling up, in the bullpen until your name's called. But it hasn't been too much of an issue. I know some people, everyone hates throwing in the cold, but I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't had too much of an issue so far with it.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of other guys throwing as well, some of your teammates, I know some of this championship Cyclones team is returning for the start of the Brooklyn Cyclones season. There's guys getting more high leverage stuff as well. And there's a lot of successful arms all throughout the Mets system. We've seen about it in AAA with a lot of the veterans. There's been a lot of hype on the Binghamton Rumble Ponies rotation and even bullpen arms. And that's when this guy's like you succeeding and thriving right now, even in high A. Can you talk about all the strength of the Mets pitching in general and how you guys are kind of rolling through it, working together, and kind of being just working really strong and talented and thriving and succeeding together at the same time?
Yeah, I think they've done a really phenomenal job just player development wise. I think going into spring training, we do a really good job at, doing certain things, just from daily meetings in the morning, everyone together and eating breakfast together. Everyone knows who everyone is. It's not just show up, get dressed, and go do your job on your own. I mean, everyone's friends with each other, which I think goes a long way, because you have guys that care for you on and off the field. So I think from an organization standpoint, I think that really benefits a lot of us. And I mean, they've done a tremendous job just from pitching development. I think they've hired the right guys to come in and help us younger guys. And you see it up and down from FCL all the way to the big leagues. Just the amount of arms and talent we have. They've done a tremendous job with that.
And it looks like even as guys like yourself now get better and better from last year to this year, there's forms of doing well in that end. And also on the coaching level, there's guys moving up the ranks, staying within the organization. And I guess one guy I wanted to bring up was the now major league assistant pitching coach, Dan McKinney, who's been around for some years now. And I know a lot of the top pitching prospects like yourself have been around him, whether it's, spring, regular seasons, and different affiliates. What's some of the experiences like and the help that coaching staff such as Dan McKinney have been impacting for you in the last year or so?
Yeah, being with Dan in the fall league was a tremendous experiment. He was kind of the first pitching coach I had to help me work on developing that harder slider. And I probably worked with him every day in the fall league, just trying to, tweak grips and pitch shape and whatnot. He was a tremendous help for me. And I remember seeing when I saw the news that they hired him as the assistant pitching coach, it didn't shock me at all. I mean, he's by far one of the best, he was, in my opinion, the best pitching coach in minor league baseball. And to see that, I was very happy for him, because I think he's definitely earned that. And just the help that he's provided for not only myself, but, all the other top arms in our org, he's definitely played a big part in their success, I think.
And then for your ongoing success, what kind of goals do you set for yourself, whether it's a week, a month, for the whole season? Like, what are some of the things that Brett Banks expects of himself, even along with the Mets organization, going forward in the near future and the rest of the year?
I think number one thing really is always just be healthy. I think after last year being on the IL to start the season and missing a month was a little setback for myself. I think I could have made another stride had I not missed that month. But I think one, just being healthy and available, and then also just kind of being where your feet are. You can't control the outcome of guys getting promoted or demoted, or getting your name called to go out there and pitch in the game. Just I think just mentally and physically being prepped and preparing the right way for when my name is called to go in the game, and just giving it 110% when I'm out there and doing the best I can to succeed.
That's good to hear. And again, you've been doing it so far, all through the beginning of the season. As we try to kind of wind down towards the end of the interview, that's usually where I also want to give you the floor, maybe send some additional shout outs, some even teammates or staff, maybe some play-by-play guy love. Anybody you want to hype up, I'll give you a couple of minutes as well. Like any shout outs, even if it's family, loved ones. This is all about you, man, and who's helping you get to this point as well, overall, even for personal and professional.
I'll give a big shout out to my parents. They are driving here today from Raleigh, North Carolina, to spend the rest of the weekend here. So might not pitch the rest of the week, but they're going to be here in the stands, and I get to hang out with them and get dinner, so I'm excited for that. Other than them, I mean, I'll give a shout out to the boys on the team. I think, we've had a rough start to the season, but I know a lot of people don't see the work that we do put on in behind the scenes, and I think as it's a long season ahead, we're not going to be discouraged over the first full week of the season. So I think there's a lot of games to be won ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, the team is definitely very talented, especially the pitching and also some of the top hitting prospects in the organization who look like they're getting bundled up for like it's Christmas because of how cold it is. So hopefully all the bats will start to warm up with the weather. But again, this is Ernest Dove, New York Mets Dove Report on YouTube, interviewing Brooklyn Cyclones relief pitcher Brett Banks. Keep an eye on him, folks. That's why I ranked him in my rankings as well. I see him going really fast, higher up the levels, maybe getting to the promised land one day soon. And you guys can say, hey, I saw him on your interviews. Now I'm really rooting for him even more than ever. Thank you so much for your time. And obviously, shout out to the Brooklyn Cyclones affiliate. You guys can always go to brooklyncyclones.com. They even have sections to click, listen. You can check in with their play-by-play guru, Justin Rock. Listen to all the games, as well as some of the streaming services, whether you guys may have one way or another. But thank you so much, Brett, for your time today. I know you're not pitching, but there's always something to do, learning and growing every day, which I'll continue to try to do as well on this channel. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.